Greetings, travelers, and welcome back to the Tales from the Enchanted Forest podcast with your hosts, Fox and Sparrow.
Hello. It's so good to be back. I feel like it has been a minute since we've both been on the pod together. While it might not seem that way for the travelers, it's been a minute since we've actually been able to record together.
Yes, we had the entire Trojan War series. Some of it which was pre-recorded, and then we had the Fox short, and now we're back together just in time for May.
Yes. And speaking of, our 5-year anniversary is coming up, which is very exciting for us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be very honest. I didn't think we'd make it this far once the pandemic was over.
It's true. After the pandemic, it was like we can do other things and stuff, but we never really quite stopped.
Yeah, I think it was just during the pandemic was a great time to launch because we had so much time to learn how to do everything and make mistakes and figure it out. And I feel like during the pandemic, people were starting so many different projects, and this is one that we started, but we've kept going, which I think is a yay us, because I feel like so many pandemic projects have now stopped.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think the pandemic was like 4 years ago. It was a rolling timeline.
It was a crazy time, and it was such a significant time, and it's so weird to think it's so far back in the rearview mirror now. But it's still such a relevant thing, and it's such an easy thing for us to use as like a time indicator, because I think we're really missing out on terms of gauging time, where we don't, it's like I'm trying to use the term the 20s for now, because I do feel like we need to start using those terms again, because it's such a helpful way to like kind of track time and signifier and stuff. But it's like the pre-pandemic such an easy shorthand for kind of referring to time and a place.
Well, we know what happened in the 1930s, so let's hope that things are a little bit better this time around.
Well, everyone was saying at the beginning, when it was like 2020, before the pandemic happened, people were like, well, what's going to be like the roaring 20s? We're going to have like flapper dress style come back, or like all of this other, we're going to like party hard. And it was like, we got all of the crazy stuff from the 1920s.
Yeah, we ended up with Y2K fashion coming back. You will never see me in low-rise jeans. Low-rise jeans make no sense to me.
Right?
It's like, I see them coming back, and I'm like, no, not for me. Thank you. You'll have to pry my high-rise from my cold, dead hands.
Speaking of the 1920s, today's story comes to us from the 1922 book Canadian Fairy Tales by Cyrus Macmillan. And this is not the first time we're retelling a story from this author. In a previous episode, we examined The Mermaid of the Magdalenes story from the very same book, and The Star Boy in the Sundance Tale from another book. Though this is actually, I realized, the first time we are covering one of his stories together, as those previous episodes were both solo episodes. It seems we both separately found this author and were like, let's dive into this stuff. But now we get to examine it together. And let me tell you, dear travelers, this tale is a wonderful, like, mashup of fairy tale tropes. Like, we're going to have suitors games. We're going to have a beautiful maiden. We're going to have an explanation tale as part of this. We're going to have all of these random things together. And this, I would feel like if you were to like try and collab all of our stories that we've covered and like try and cover as many as you can, this is the type of tale you would get. It doesn't cover everything, but it gets a whole swath of tropes in here, and I love it. So, without further ado, please relax as we tell the tale of Sparrow's search for rain. Once upon a time, in a village by the sea, there was an old widowed warrior who had one daughter. Now, since this is a fairy tale, his daughter was, of course, very beautiful, gentle, and nearly perfect in every way. She was well liked by everyone and was quite content living a quiet life. Her father boasted of her wisdom, claiming she would one day marry a great man. Despite his high hopes, his daughter was not keen on getting married. It seemed to her that men had small minds, and she would rather live alone than be married and always need to listen to their boastfulness and foolish chatter. But of course, word of her beauty spread far and wide. As such, many suitors came to the village and asked the old warrior for his daughter's hand in marriage. Though the father would only shake his head and say that it was his daughter's choice, even if he had his own thoughts on the matter. But she was clear that she would only marry a man who could amuse her, interest her, and keep her company. She had no interest in entertaining dull people. One day, Loon came to see her. He was a very tall, handsome, well-dressed fellow, despite his long and slightly scrawny neck. He was also a very skilled fisherman. Between his good looks and great skills, he thought he could win the maiden over. But alas, she had no love for him because he didn't say a single word to her. When she asked him a question, he just stared back at her until eventually he burst into loud laughter. She sighed and told him that he had a small mind just like the others.
Damn.
I mean, I understand where she's coming from, but to say it to him is a little harsh.
I mean, you can just say no. I don't want to marry you.
Right? She'd be like, this doesn't feel like a good fit.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Really, he should have spoken to her. I feel like if you want to marry someone, the very least you could do is talk to her.
Right? You do want to marry her, which means you're going to spend a bunch of time with her.
Like, what are you going to do? Just sit in silence with your wife? So I guess that she shouldn't make fun of him, but at the same time, he kind of deserved to be made fun of.
Very sympathetic for her, but yeah, that's like the only tweak I would make. Well, sometimes too, you don't want to be like outright mean, but sometimes you do have to be very firm, like being like, no, this is not gonna happen. So I don't know what position she was in with this loon.
I mean, a loon is just a stupid Canadian wolf bird, so there's not much going for it anyway.
Yeah. But sometime later, the fox appeared, hoping to win her over. For a whole day, he tried to amuse her with silly antics, from chasing his tail to dancing and playing pranks. But just like the loon, he was unsuccessful and left in despair. Many more suitors came and left rejected. Eventually, the maiden had enough, and she decided that she would see no more suitors and would live alone with her father. The young men were quite upset by the scornful words she had said to each of them as they left. They talked amongst themselves how she said some were scatterbrained and others were told they had small minds. They agreed she must pay for these insults. So they vowed that they would find a way to break her proud spirit and bring her sorrow because of her ideas and her decision to stay single all her life. Unfortunately, reading over the story and typing up this part just felt very true. It's like, why do some men always hate when women want to be single? I feel like I see this as like a thing online, and unfortunately, even just this week, I had experienced something very close to this, and it's like, why is doing nothing sometimes just seen as the worst thing a woman can do?
It's part of the whole thing of a woman's worth is dependent on how much men want her, I guess. Because some people see it like, oh, if you're not desirable to men, then like what is the point of it? If you're not doing a hobby that's for the male gaze. But I do think as a society we're moving away from that a little bit in some aspects. We are moving closer to it in other aspects, like things like trad wives and stuff like that aren't helping. But so much of what being like a woman is based on what do men think of that thing. Like, oh, what will your husband say? What will your boyfriend say? What will your husband's family say? It's just, I think it's so outdated. At the same time, though,
yeah,
she's holding, like, this is just like a reality show. I feel like she's holding a contest to see who's going to be her suitor. And yes, not all of them will match up to what her expectations are. But at the same time, I don't think she has to be so mean about it. You know, like, I feel like she could be a little bit, she can be picky, of course. You can be as picky as you want. But I feel like if you're the one searching for somebody and people are, you know, taking the risk and putting themselves forward for consideration, maybe just a little bit nicer.
Yeah, it's I 100% feel for her, but you are correct. Like, maybe just don't.
I mean, they're definitely taking the rejection in a crazy way. They're like, she won't get us, and she called us names. We're going to break her spirit. Like, okay, that's a bit much as well. I think it's not a proportionate response to what she did.
The things she said were not nice, but they did not warrant, like, a response. Like, they should just, really, they should just take the cue that this was not going to work out anyways and move on. So I don't want to, like, victim blame here, but also, yeah, she could have handled it a little better. I just do find it crazy sometimes when we come across these stories and, like, this could have been written today, and, like, that would have felt, like, just very accurate for today as well. So that was just 100%. Kind of a fun moment seeing that.
No, it's very, very relevant to, like, when you have a woman who knows what she wants and she's quite proud and she's quite picky. I feel like if you can't control her, people then want to bring her down. And I think this goes regardless of gender. I think other women do it too. Where if you see someone who's sure of themselves, you're like, well, I think they're arrogant. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying we should blame her for what they're about to do, but because it is not proportionate to, like, what she said to them. Like, calling them names is one thing, but for them to be like, we're gonna break her spirit, like, that's crazy. That's insane.
Yeah. But let's see what does happen. So the young men went to Whirlwind to see if he would help in their plan to humble the prideful maiden. See, Whirlwind had this incredible ability to make himself invisible, which he was known for using in some crazy pranks. And if you thought that them bringing up this incredible ability for their revenge plan would be used in said revenge plan, you'd be sorely disappointed. Like, pretty much after they talk about this with him, the maiden just walks by and Whirlwind just sort of charges at her and she falls down into the mud. So I guess that was their whole plan, and Whirlwind wasn't even invisible for it because everyone sees it's him. Mm-hmm. So with that, the maiden is now just fallen over into the mud and the young men point and laugh at her. But, like, geez, I wonder why she didn't want to marry these idiots.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously this was not proportional, but in, like, stories like this, I was like, I knew there was going to be some comeuppance, but I was like, this is also just very low stakes. Like, even in your revenge, guys, I'm like, this is all you came up with was asking this random other guy to kind of push her into the mud, like, when he could turn invisible and do, like, really crazy stuff.
It's just, I feel like it's such, like, I hate to say it, but it's just, like, boy mentality of, like, oh, I'm just going to push her over. And then we're going to laugh at her and make her feel stupid. Okay.
Right? Like, there's just a lot of layers to this of, like, this feels really real, but also, like, come on, guys. Mm-hmm. We couldn't have been more creative with it. You're kind of proving her point. But anyways, feeling embarrassed and ashamed, she returned home and tells her father what had happened. Hearing her story and seeing her disheveled state, her father became quite angry and complained to the chief that Whirlwind must be banished. The chief agreed and decreed that Whirlwind must leave the village immediately. Little did anyone know the consequences of these hasty actions. The news was very concerning to Rain, who was Whirlwind's best friend. They had been especially close since Rain was born without eyes and so could not see. So Whirlwind had led Rain wherever he needed to go. When Whirlwind packed his things, Rain begged to go with him. He agreed, and so the two of them left together with Whirlwind leading Rain. As months went by, people began missing them very, very much. Eventually, the earth began to reflect their absence as there was no wind or rain. The chief and his council agreed to revoke the decree that banished Whirlwind. With that out of the way, they had to send out a messenger to find and tell them the good news. They first sent Fox on this important quest. He traveled for many weeks across roads, marshy lake shores, and up high forested mountains. He looked in every cave and under every leaf, but he found no sign of them. Shamefully, he returned home having failed his mission. Next, they tasked the bear with continuing the search. The bear scoured the earth, sniffing the air, exploring deep caves, and turning over every log and boulder with his great strength. He even inquired with the mountains and trees to see if they had seen the missing pair. But eventually he too returned to the village, having found no trace of them. The chief was quite angry with the animals, having failed to find the missing pair. One of his wise councilmen suggested turning to the birds, as they would often succeed where animals fell. Though I personally don't know why they didn't just start with the birds if they were trying to cover a big area to find things. Or why not even release them all at the same time and just see who is successful? But I digress.
Mm-hmm.
The chief quickly agreed as things were getting worse. Boats couldn't be sailed because Whirlwind was away. Streams were drying up and plants were dying because rain was gone. Things were getting bad, so they needed the birds to find them soon. The great crane searched the lakes and ponds. The crow searched the hills, and the kingfisher flew out to the sea, but they all came back having found nothing. Then little Sparrow decided it was time for him to search as well. Before he took off, he plucked a small down feather and attached it to a small stick. He held the stick in his bill and took off. For many days he flew south, keeping a close eye on the feather, which hung motionless to the stick that he held in his bill. One fateful day, he saw the down feather move ever so slightly, so he knew Whirlwind had to be close by. Following the subtle breeze, he soon saw the earth below him becoming lush and green with flowers and trees thriving. Excited, the little sparrow flew faster and followed a running stream of water that led to a cave with many colorful flowers and soft green grass gently swaying in the wind. He knew that inside the cave he was going to find who he was looking for. And sure enough, as Sparrow peeked inside the cave, he saw a smoldering fire next to Whirlwind and Rain slept. Sparrow tried to wake them with his voice and hit them with his bill, but both stayed sound asleep. So Sparrow picked up a piece of coal from the fire and placed it on Rain's back. Unfortunately for Sparrow, the coal just kind of sputtered and fizzled out immediately, but Sparrow was determined to wake them up. So after 2 more attempts of bringing the coals over and trying to wake Rain with them, Rain finally awoke. But Rain was unable to see the stranger, and not recognizing the voice, he woke up Whirlwind to protect him. Once everyone calmed down from the situation, Sparrow told the 2 wanderers of the great troubles they had experienced since they left. He told them how much the people missed them and what great sorrow their absence had brought. Finally, he told them how the chief had revoked their banishment and requested that they return. They agreed to return home and begin their journey back the following day. They also told Sparrow that he could fly home now and let the people know that they will be back the day after he returns. Feeling very proud of his success, the Sparrow left right away and flew for several days before finally returning home. He first flew to the Sparrow people and told them the good news. They all celebrated by dancing, chirping, and feasting, for Rain would finally be returning. Then the Sparrow went to the chief and told him all about his travel south. He told them how he found Whirlwind and Rain and how they will be returning by the morrow. The chief was very pleased to hear this, and for Sparrow's great deed, he promised that he would never be hunted or killed for game. I understand this in the context of the story and what they're about to get to, but it feels really crazy to me. You're like, I did this incredible thing. They're like, great, good news, we're not going to kill you.
We're not going to eat you.
You'd be like, wait, that was on the table?
You're like, oh, thank you. Please don't eat me.
I think I'm going to rethink some things of the status of this village. The next morning, the two travelers returned to the village. Whirlwind's presence was felt with great clouds blowing in, waves dashed across the rocks, and trees dancing with his return. Rain followed closely after, ever staying close to his sightseeing friend. Several days passed, and the earth became green again, and the rivers were no longer dry. Since that time, Wind and Rain have never left the Atlantic coast for long. To this day, sparrows know when rain is coming. They signal his approach by gathering together to dance and chirp, just as their ancestor found him with the down feather. And they say that the people of the village kept their promise and never hunted sparrows for food or sport. And, you know, the maiden's probably living her best single life, and the suitors probably just had to deal with it. But we never really hear more about them. This is one of those fun stories where we have, like, a fairly detailed build-up, and then we're like, now forget all that build-up we just did. We don't care about those characters anymore. We have new characters.
It's like all of that was just the backstory. That was all part of the prologue.
Right? I feel like it's funny. I feel like in any other medium, I would definitely be criticizing them for that. And like, you had this amount of time to tell a story, and then you were like kind of squandering it with these characters that really aren't the main meat of the story. But when it comes to fairy tales, I just love it. And like, you have 20 sentences here, and you spent 10 of them on characters who do not matter, and I love that for you. I don't know, I find it quite charming.
Honestly, I like a long backstory.
Yeah.
It's like, this is all this setup.
With that said, it does make for a very fun tale, and that it also covers a wide variety of tropes. Like, we have all of this stuff surrounding winning the maiden over with the suitor games, how she's kind of got her wisdom, and she even gets humbled, quote unquote. But then we also move into like a full-on animal tale at the end of it. And we get an explanation at the end of it for a couple different things. So it kind of ticks a lot of boxes, in which I'm quite loving. Yes,
and I'm such a fan of explanatory stories, especially like seasonal ones. Mm-hmm. That's not a surprise to anybody. I love my seasonal tale, and I think we really like our animal tales here as well.
I love a good animal tale. I feel like they're underrated. I feel like when people think of fairy tales, they think of the princes and princesses, which is very like fair and they're iconic. But like, I feel like with all of that focus being on royalty and stuff, animals just get like fly under the radar. But there's just so many good ones.
Yeah, and I feel like telling animal tales has been such a time-honored tradition. No matter which country you're in, you'll always find a trickster tale that has to do with an animal. You'll always find some kind of world story about how the world came to be, and it usually involves animals. Like when we covered Sky Woman, we've covered the Rainbow Serpent. I find like animal tales are universal, and yet we don't talk about them as much as we talk about other types of fairy tales, which is a shame.
Yeah.
So hopefully we're part of the trend of going towards more animal stories.
And coming back to that, this being is an explanation story, I did do some research, and it looks like this is correct. Like, this is something that sparrows do, that they seem to be able to kind of predict when it's going to rain, and they do these little signals to kind of talk with each other about it, which is in turn we kind of read their behavior pattern and know, okay, rain's about to come. And scientists have done more research on this, and on the website we'll link to an article talking more about that. But it's just kind of fun to see how we observe this behavior, but then scientists have now found like really interesting, like complex reasons of like why they're able to do such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways.
At least I think with a lot of the animal tales, over time we do find that there are reasons why those animals were chosen for those tales. Obviously because our ancestors may not have had the science behind it all, but they are really good at observing things, and they might have observed something and been like, okay, this makes sense. So to me, it makes sense the sparrow can tell the weather.
Yes. It's not the only bird. There are other birds that can do this, but the sparrow is definitely the one that's the iconic hero in this story that has that.
That we will not eat.
Yes, we're not going to hunt for sport, and we're not going to eat them, everybody, okay?
Let's do fox hunting next.
Yeah, we really need to get some village to promise not to hunt the fox, but the fox has always proven to be a bit of a trickster. Which was not something that won over the maiden, apparently. Maybe she was not amused by watching him chase his own tail and stuff.
I mean, to be honest, none of those, the Canadian wolf bird, the fox, none of them were great.
And with that, dear travelers, I think that's about all we have for this week. Next episode, we'll be doing something a little different. We're really excited about it, kind of celebrating our 5-year anniversary. So I hope you guys will stick around for that. But until then, stay safe and have fun.
If you want to hear more from us and find out what our next story will be and what we're planning on doing for the anniversary, then you can join us on social media sites like Bluesky and Instagram. We are under the podcast name of From Enchanted. If you are old school like Sparrow, however, then you can always email us at talesfromtheenchantedforest@gmail.com. But the best place to reach us is always through our website. We'd love to hear your comments and suggestions.
And remember, there's always a place for you in the Enchanted Forest.